Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Docu Cafe. Today, we're going to be talking about making a living as a documentary filmmaker. My name is Amin Quider, and I'm going to be your host for this webinar. And I'll be joined in a bit by Professor Stuart Tanner. So, you're connecting to this series that we've had called Docu Cafe for as part of the MFA in documentary filmmaking at MIU. So there's closed captioning if you need it. It's available on your screen. It should be available. This is part of a documentary series that we've had. And today we're doing the Making a Living as a Documentary Filmmaker based on popular demand. We were going to do another webinar today, but a lot of people have been asking us the question about the $1 million question, so to speak. How does one make a living as a documentary filmmaker? So we thought we'd tackle this question today. Our MFA is very practical. It's like right on the spot. You're making a feature documentary in two shorts, so it's very practical, very hands-on. We have transcendental meditation as part of our program, so to help you connect with your inner self, with your inner depth. And then we're committed to telling stories with heart and integrity and staying really with the world, all the changes, the AI, the new technology, the new cameras, the new software. We're staying up to date with all of that. And the idea is to make films that really get to touch people's soul, to really get to the essence of what it means to be humans, but also with the practical questions of how can we make a living while doing that. So MIU is a nonprofit university and it's accredited by the Higher Learning Commission, if you're wondering. That's who we are. So, and there's you can ask questions in the Q&A and in the chat function. And in fact, I'm going to ask you to test out this chat function here. So in the chat, why don't you tell us where you're connecting from today? Would love to hear where you're connecting from. Say hello from your location. So while those things are rolling around, hello, Jesse from New York. We've got, wow, Seattle, Washington, Florida, New York City, North Carolina, Fairfield. Hello, Fairfield. This is where we're located. South Carolina, Houston, Texas, Boogie Town, Bronx, like that. Washington representing Chicago, Illinois. Go Chicago. I was just there this weekend. Cleveland, Ohio, New York City. Well, it's fabulous. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Wonderful to have you here with us. And there's more coming in. There's more Fairfield, Angela from New Jersey, Waterloo. Very good. Today's webinar will be talking about a few different things. One, which is what are the skills of a documentary filmmaker? Like, what are the skills that you acquire as a documentary filmmaker? And then Stuart will talk to us about finding the golden key. And we'll talk about different career opportunities and how our MFA is set up as a career-oriented MFA. We're good. And we want this to be as interactive as possible. So feel free to ask us questions either in the chat or in the function there. We have Stuart Tanner connecting with us today. Stuart, are you there?
I'm here. So, as Amin said, we thought we'd talk about, the career, the life of a documentary filmmaker in terms of the career that you can have, the jobs that you have. How do you sustain yourself? Is there a living in it, and so on? It's a really important aspect to talk about because it's something that, if you want to follow, can it sustain your life and support you enough to be your principal career and so on. So I think we're both keen to address that and talk about that. So we will certainly be getting into the various aspects of the answers in this session.
Fabulous. So, Stuart, like when somebody is trained to be a documentary filmmaker, what are
Hmm.
some of the skills? What have you seen and in your life as a documentary filmmaker? what are some of the skills that you acquire, both like real life skills, but also soft skills that people get as being a documentary filmmaker?
Yeah, I mean, there are many skills involved in becoming a documentary filmmaker. So I think it'd be interesting to talk through them and to look at what those skills lead to. But in a way, there's something a little more foundational than that, which leads you on the path to acquire the skills and also then, as a result of that, to be have a sustainable career in the documentary film and related industries. So, what is the foundation really? I think for a documentary filmmaker, and that has to be it has to be that spark inside you. I mean, the passion inside you. Um, that feeling that, you have this desire to know the world and to tell its stories. And I think that's a really important foundation. And, you know it when you have it. Uh, I've always said that's a similar thing like if you with writing. It's something like you feel as you can't not do. If you choose not to do it, it doesn't go away. And that's an interesting thing about it, you know. It just doesn't go away. Um, and so even if you go off and do something else, it's sort of there in the background, still calling, right? This is what happens with writers. This is what happens with documentary filmmakers. That it's there, it's something that you need to that has to be answered. Now, when I started my career in documentary filmmaking, there weren't MFAs like where we've put together here. So it was sure there was film school and so on, but there wasn't sort of dedicated MFAs with the kind of focus and project basis that is being offered in the MFA at MIU. If there was, I would have, phew, man, I would have taken it straight away, no question. So in a way, one had to kind of, you know, create a path towards that. And for me, that was driven by the passion and that passion to tell the stories of the world. So I took myself off to Thailand. I'd read this little bit about a story about Buddhist monks doing some social work somewhere in Thailand, and you know, you don't know why some things spark for you and others don't, but that was the spark, and I went off to Thailand and I was all paying for it myself and found the monks in, a part of Thailand that most people didn't go to. And there were all these villages there that had fallen into ruin because the seawater had come and affected the soil and all the rice had stopped growing. That had collapsed the local economy. Because the local economy had collapsed, all sorts of negative social behaviors started to creep in, and the whole sort of set of villages had just gone into a really bad kind of state and affecting the young in the villages as well. And I'd heard this story about the monks, because in every area there's there's going to be a temple there. The monks had decided rather than remain sort of detached in a way from the situation, they were going to go out there and find a solution. And you know what? They did. And I thought, well, that's a great story. The monks are there doing what the monks do in terms of their Buddhism, but because of their compassion for the people that after all sustained them as well. They saw the ruin of all these villages, and they thought, well, we're going out there, we're going to do something about it. And they basically developed an agricultural system and used a kind of rice that was more salt tolerant, and introduced a combination system of doing rice with ponds, with fish, and with other things. And they managed to rejuvenate these villages step by step back up to a healthy state. And I thought that was just marvelous and a great story. This is, we talked about the life of a documentary filmmaker. So this is a story that just I'm chasing, that interested me. And a month or two later, I don't speak Thai, but I'm there, and I'm in a room and listening to the monks explain all of this, and someone's translating for me, and I'm creating what I think, will be a proposal for a documentary, and which did become a proposal. But in the process, one was learning so much, you see, and this is the key. The passion for telling the stories of the world led to that experience. That experience is teaching you every single day, and that what you learn there in that process is really of such great value. And that step leads to the next step. And literally from that story, my career, I would say, evolved and grew and became what it became, which is, eventually going around the world for the BBC and other international broadcasters and making documentaries and so on. So learning all the skills along the way. So I would say, I just want to indicate that for me is like really a powerful sort of foundation. Now, the beauty of the MFA is it incorporates both the training of the core skills with the focus on the projects. So it's about, anyone who coming into the MFA, developing, fostering that passion, that feeling, that story that you want to tell, that film that you want to make, and really, being there as mentors to support having such experiences which become that foundation for acquiring all those skills and so on. And then really things develop out of there, which we can talk more about.
Yeah, this is what I find fascinating about what you just said, is that there's that passion, but you didn't enter documentary filmmaking as a filmmaker. You entered as a researcher and as a curious person, as a person that wanted to tell stories, that was fascinated by stories. And
I am a curious person, that's true.
And this is really where, documentary has so many aspects to it, that there's so many entry points into the documentary world and into the careers of documentary and into the skills that you develop as a documentary filmmaker. Because it's not one thing that you're doing. One moment you're writing and researching, and you're developing real critical thinking for like evaluating information, pulling information from different sources, checking it, diving deep into it, doing deep level research, calling people, sending emails, going to public libraries, talking to like experts to kind of get the real research skill. And that's in itself is a huge skill. And then you're writing it, but you're writing it with the understanding that it will change on you every single moment. So you're writing with this flexibility. So you develop multiple drafting of write skills for like nonfiction. And then once you have that, then you need to put it into a proposal. You need to put this whole vision and there begins the step of being a project manager, basically, where you're writing up the vision, you're making sure that you're creating a budget, you're making sure that you're making it feasible for yourself. You're taking all the project management skills that people learn at MBAs, but you're doing it in a smaller scale for documentary filmmaking. And then begins the filming, the sound recording, the lighting potentially, the making sure people are signing release forms. So there's like a legal aspect to it. There's there's a journalistic aspect, and then there's people skills. You have to be somewhat of a politician. I've been accused of being that myself a little bit. It's like, as a documentary filmmaker, you need to be a diplomat. So there's those skills that come into play. And then very practical again: camera, filming, audio, editing, directing, producing. And then when it's all done, you bring it back, and then you are editing it and you're writing for grants, and you're still managing the project. We have somebody that says they're project manager for 4.5 years. You will do great as a documentary filmmaker. It's half the job, really. um, so it touches on so many different aspects of different careers, and it develops so many aspects of life. And this is why it's really kind of a fascinating life. And I love that you started it with that spark that you feel to tell the stories and to bring people's stories to the world. What is the golden key, Stuart? I want to hear about that. Mentioned it
Okay.
earlier when I was
Yeah,
talking.
what is one of the beauties? What is one of the beautiful things about, the life of a filmmaker, really, and the path of a filmmaker is that it's, it's the pathless path, right? In a way. I mean, there is no set path. Everyone really finds their way because it really does rely on that foundation that drives you, that passion that drives you to make films and to tell those stories and to be out there in the world in order to do that. So I think that's an incredible thing because it really puts you in a different world from a world in which you're going to go into a building at a certain set time of day and leave at a set time of day and maybe be in an office that you spend a year in or more. And, with the same great group of people who may be great and wonderful and everything. And maybe it's even a Google office. I don't know. But nonetheless, it's like quite contained, right? And you get on probably the same train or drive the same car along the same road and maybe eat lunch at the same favorite food stall stand or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that can't be a good thing, but the life of a documentary filmmaker and the path to, the career and being paid in this career is not set like that. It doesn't follow a particular kind of set path for one to follow. It's one that really one makes for oneself, that you are creating yourself. And so you don't know what's around the corner, and you don't know the people that you'll be meeting in a month or two or three or four, and where it will be, entirely what they will say, what entirely the outcomes will be, and so on. It's such a extraordinary kind of process in a way of manifesting the story in the sense of understanding it, researching it, and doing all that, and then capturing it, and then, creating something special with it. And so I do think that's wonderful and unique. And if you follow that and you allow that to teach you the lessons from that process, you acquire some very, very essential and strong skills. And those skills translate, into a film career and documentary, but also associated things, which we'll go into as well, because all of those things can sustain you financially, which is important, obviously. So what do I mean by the golden key? Well, for me, the golden key was this whole thing of being a researcher. My career started because I was a researcher. I didn't have any filmmaking skills as such, but what I was good at is researching a story, kind of, reading about something, getting together finding the essential locations, people, talking to them, and then kind of putting it together in a way that it became possible to see it as a film, and so on. And I did that several times with several different stories, none of which got backed to be made into a documentary. But they really taught me that gave me the skills that I did eventually write a proposal that got commissioned to be made into a documentary. So, so that was my golden key is, I wasn't a filmmaker. I didn't shoot the camera. I didn't know sound. I didn't know editing. I'm not recommending that, by the way. I'm just saying it's like in my particular case. But I had that golden key. This is the one thing I was good at, and I kept at it. I'm good at that. Let's go that. I'll keep going at it, and having incredible experiences along the way. And, running out of money, doing something to earn a little bit more, to research another story, um, you know, uh, like that, until things started to break and, opportunities started to come. And so you don't necessarily, in order to begin that process of a career, need the complete skill set. And most of us have the aspiration to be maybe a producer director of our own documentaries and so on, which is great. But you often will find yourself like maybe you'll nonetheless take positions on other films or other projects, to support you financially as well, and that's fine. But that golden key can be just one single skill to really open the door and get first kind of payments and, positions and so on. And then you can extend your network from there. So that's important because we don't need to become the complete documentary filmmaker before we can start a career. And I think, the the whole thing is that this is one of the things that we focus on in the MFA is that you start your career on the MFA in terms of maybe that one particular area you're particularly good at, camera, sound, production management. There's a big list.
Journalism, research,
Journalism, right? That's an important
content
one.
creator,
Right.
podcaster, you name it.
Yeah. and you know, you might have a particular feeling, a strong feeling, like for Amin, it's cameras. Talks about them all the time. Drives us nuts. No, doesn't really. I love it. I love it. And you know, it's just so good to have that kind of focus on, you know, you can work with someone and you know that that's their thing, and they really love it and they're into it, they understand it, and as a result, amazing images come out as a result of that. So we can all have that, in a sense, golden key of the thing that, at least initially, although we have the aspiration to be producer, director, and everything, can give us positions on films and income from jobs that really, you know, begin the process and open up the world of documentary filmmaking.
It's beautiful, Stuart. Well, there's a question that's very practical. I appreciate the passion to tell stories. Where does the funding come from? Without a budget and funding, one cannot film. For example, even to have the curiosity about the monks in Thailand, one needs money to purchase a flight, do the research, and thus just gain background to do a proposal. In the meantime, if no income is coming in, how is one to pay the rent and eat? Can I
Mm.
take a little
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
part of this, and then I'll let you answer it because it's very specific to Thailand. When I started making films, I didn't go to Thailand to research a story. I was in Algeria, and there was an artist. I was studying at MIU, and there was an artist in Algeria that was about to do a big exhibition. And I barely knew how to make films, but he said, I need a film for the museum piece, and I have a budget to pay for it. And I said, you know what? Yeah, I'll I'll do it. I didn't know how to make films. I didn't have a camera. I just had to borrow my uncle's camcorder, you know, like those 8 millimeter tapes or whatever. And I made a film, and I just put so much attention to it. And it was part of school, and it was very helpful that I had access to some of the equipment. I had access to some of the mentors. And then I made that film, and it was selected in a few film festivals. And then David Lynch was visiting the university, God bless his soul, and saw the film, and they hired me to work for David Lynch Foundation. So for like 4 or 5 years, I was hired as a documentary filmmaker to just make films. But when you're hired as a documentary filmmaker for foundations and nonprofits, which is a very common career path for documentary filmmakers, that you're hired to create content for production, or like a creative director or someone that creates multiple shorts for them, or envisions their whole visual strategy for nonprofits. So during that time with the David Lynch Foundation, I did editing jobs. On some projects, I was doing sound. On some projects, I was a photographer. On some projects, I was a cinematographer. I directed a few projects. And while having that one kind of main job, also doing side gigs. You know, another foundation needs a video. You know, like a friend reaches out and he's like, hey, I'm having trouble with my story. And you just help them with their story. And it turns out they have access to funding, to that golden goose. And then now they bring in you into the project. I think the main thing is to acquire the skills and to have that passion, and then to make things. This is again why we really set up this MFA to be a maker's MFA. It's not a theoretical thing. You're making two shorts and a longer piece, because you're learning by doing, but in an accelerated space where you have mentors, where you have a lot of guidance, a lot of one-on-one attention. And so based on the projects that you create, you're going to get people speaking to you and giving you opportunities. I should be I'm the worst one to like speak about um sort of like creating a portfolio and doing all these things. I don't even have a website, but I'm constantly working, not just the teaching job, but like we edited a feature documentary last year. I worked on a film with Stuart and I was doing sound, drone, and second camera. I'm working as a writer on another documentary. And then I have my own passion project, the ones that I love doing. When I make a little extra money, I put a little bit to the side. So that's that. There's also grants available. I was the recipient of a grant from the state of Iowa. Most states will have grants. I know other peoples that received grants to make films, to tell stories in different ways. So I always think of it this way: when there's a will, there's a way. And if you've made a film and if you've taken that step and you've built the skills, then other skills, people will come to you to work with you. And then you build a network of clients, of people that will refer you to other people. And it just kind of takes on a life of its own there. So hope this answers your question. Okay,
Yeah,
so go ahead.
adding to that, sort of how do you fund films? Well, Thailand was self-funded, researching those stories was self-funded. I do think at the very beginning, people don't tend to throw money at you to begin with, I have to say. That's just part of the reality. That's reality for any part of the creative industry. Um, they tend to start backing you more when, you've got for a little bit further down the road. So that's where the golden key comes in, because very often to realize your ambitions in terms of your own story ideas and everything, you probably going to need, some supporting positions and income. And so that's where acquiring skills as an editor or a shooter, a camera, sound, or associated aspects of filmmaking, with which there's quite a few, and story and everything, can lead you to get in those positions, which then can support you towards the bigger goals of getting backing for your own ideas and so on. So it is a path which has these steps along the way. You can never rule out the good fortune of, researching a story, writing a proposal, and someone giving you the money to make it in one off. Although that's, to be realistic, doesn't tend to happen straight away. It'll happen as you sort of follow the path that we've been describing of acquiring the skills and refining the story and proposals and so on, and keeping it going, and things begin to break and stuff comes your way more and more.
Very good. We've got a few more questions, so this is really great. There's a question that says, if you said that if you're a writer, you never lose it, is it possible to lose the spark? If so, how do you get it back? That's a great question.
Yeah. Well, the spark as a filmmaker, I think, uh, in all honesty, filmmaking can be quite demanding, like hugely rewarding, but also can be quite demanding. Partly because of the its richness means there is many, many aspects to it. So to make a film, as you know, requires sound, lights, working with a team, a lot of logistics, and coordination, and then financing it, and planning it, executing it, editing it, post-production, and so on. So that's a lot. And if you see the process through from beginning to end, it's always a lot of work. So the thing to be careful of is not to lose the spark by burning out. And that's why Amin and I always talk in very realistic terms and set realistic expectations. Because if you don't talk in realistic terms and have realistic expectations and build things in a way that really works with the current way of the industry and how things are and technology and all the rest of it, then you can put yourself under too much pressure or burn yourself out and stuff, and that's how you can lose the spark, because there really should always be pleasure in the process, joy in the process, creative kind of satisfaction or creative engagement in the process, because that's why one chooses to be a documentary filmmaker. I mean, apart from, telling the stories and everything, it is a very creative and fulfilling process. So, yeah, it is important to not kill the spark by overextending oneself, I would say, and risking burnout. So, I think that's an interesting thing to talk about and to have as an aspect on the MFA, to incorporate that in the learning in the MFA.
Yeah, and there's a question that was addressed to me directly. Thanks. Shout out, Giovanna. How do you deal with anxiety and burnouts that come with working that way on multiple projects, going at the same time, asking for documentarians who work solo? Well, I'll give you a magic trick. This is why we're launching this MFA at MIU, Maharishi International University. Every student learns transcendental meditation. It's the biggest lifesaver. You meditate in 20 minutes twice a day, and it's like recharging the battery, reconnecting with that joy inside of you, recreating with creativity inside, just getting a real depth of knowing who you are, just connecting with who you are being itself, like in your essence. And then you come out and you're refreshed and you see the world in color, and you are able to connect to the joy of the doing. So that's one aspect, which is inner supports the outer. Inner development, meditation, and then that supports the outer. The second thing I do is I choose my projects very carefully, and I have a formula. I have actually two formulas that are very practical for documentary filmmakers. Formula number one is I have a triangle, and the triangle goes like this: people, project, money. People, project, money. 2 out of the 3 need to be there for me to go ahead with a project. So let's pick an example. Sometimes there's a project that I'm very interested in. Very interested in that project. I want to dive into it. I want to learn about it. It's something that creates that spark inside of me, that gives me the spark. And then the people that I'm going to be working with are incredible, and they take good care of you. They support you. They connect you to other people. They will go to the moon and back to support you, but also you learn from them. And there's a real flow. You don't feel that friction of working with a client or something. Then I'm willing to take very little money to no money. And I do this, I volunteer my skills. Once a year, I try to volunteer my skills for different projects for nonprofits. And that's also part of what you do. It's like you volunteer your skills, and then those people open up doors for other projects to come. And so the two are there. The money doesn't necessarily need to be there as strongly. But if there's the three, of course you take it. But let's say I'm not that interested in the project, but I really like the people. If there's a real good flow, they take good care of me, they connect me to people. The project is not that interesting, then I need to get paid properly. So then the two are there. And then same goes with the project is fascinating. The people are a little bit difficult to work with, or maybe just that don't necessarily add. The contributors, the people are not adding any value to your project particularly, but you're interested in the project and the money, then that's a golden triangle to choose projects for me. And then once I've chosen the projects, this is a very common one in business, which is, good, cheap, fast. And you can't have all three. You can't have something that's good, cheap, and fast. So I usually tell my clients, you got to pick. Do you want good and fast? It's not going to be cheap. You want cheap and fast? It's not going to be that good. You want good and fast or whatever, good and cheap? It's not going to be fast. It's going to take me a while to get to it. So these like little two triangles that I have really help me pick the projects that keep the spark going and that get me excited, because I'm either motivated by the project and the people, or the money and the people, or whatever it is. So hope this is like a very practical thing. So there's an inner component of the meditation and self-development and connecting with the joy inside. And then there's the outer component of really managing your clients, really managing the people you work with, managing your ability to kind of express yourself through the project as well.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, that's really great. So there's a question there for both of us. What are the best platforms or ways to showcase documentaries nowadays? Well, the first thing to say is that we do have in the MFA course called The Business of Documentary, and so that will look into funding and also into where you showcase your documentary, how to showcase your documentary, how to get it out there, what can happen with it, where it can end up, and so on. There are many aspects to that, more than ever before. So the streaming services have had a major impact because they actually quite like documentaries, because they don't cost as much as even a low budget feature film is probably the cost of what would be considered to be a decent budget for a documentary. So streaming services quite like documentaries. They're becoming more featured on streaming services, and in a sense, documentaries enjoying something of a renaissance. I think also people's desire for realness, authenticity, and to sort of maybe as a counterpoint to some other things is also a factor. And so that's important too. Documentary is a performance in the sense that it's performed either in your room, but I think, we're also shifting to the spectacle of the documentary as an event, so that it becomes an event, and at those events talks are given and so on. So I find that that's increasingly the case, for instance, with the documentary that we did, Seeds of Sovereignty, in terms of requests for showing the documentary, but also having talks alongside it, Q's and A's, and associated things to talk about the issues that are in the documentary. There really is quite a substantial kind of ecosystem that you can build around a documentary, and should build around a documentary, and which can go on for years. This is still happening with the earlier documentary that we made. So it's still happening with documentaries I made 20 years ago. Which is kind of an interesting part of the process. They don't necessarily get made and then fade away completely. So it's interesting in that respect. But certainly, in terms of what would happen on the MFA, one of the things we encourage and support is the film festival circuit, where obviously you can get good exposure. There are so many festivals now. I mean, there's thousands around the world and so on. And yeah, you have to do your own screening for the festivals and everything in terms of which ones are right, which ones are worthwhile, which ones are not, and all the rest of it. But when you do get screened at a documentary, usually now there's two. There's the in person and there's the like online sort of screening of your documentary and so on. So if it's in person, then you can turn up, you meet other people, it's a networking. You often get distributors getting in touch with you and saying, hey, do you want to distribute your documentary with us? And so on. So that's a whole world in itself, and can lead to many, many, many different things going on. So feeding into that might be foundations who want to focus on a particular issue, NGOs that do, organizations, individuals who want to support films because they focus on something to do with the environment, or something that's important, that the story needs to be told. There's lots of individuals, grants and people who put money into films for that very reason, and then they use those films as a focus for getting the issues that they want to get out there and talk about. So documentaries can sit right in the middle of like quite a ecosystem to push forward an issue or to bring a story out into the world, or to new revelations about an issue of great importance. I mean, it's a big thing. It's a big world. There's a lot to it. There's a huge amount going on. Documentary festivals, like almost in every city all over the world. Believe me. So it's a big world. It's to enter into, and if you've got something that you have done that process with, and has reached that point where it sings, it's got a voice, it's got something to say creatively or about an issue or whatever, then there is that big, big world for it to enter into. And then on top of that is the actual, maybe mainstream casters or streaming services like Amazon and Netflix and everything. So there's a lot to go through about all of that, and we will as part of the MFA.
There's some more questions coming in, but I created 2 slides. I wanted to kind of go through some quick slides as we're wrapping up, and then we'll make sure to answer all the questions that come in. So these are the, generally speaking, just like broadly speaking, different careers that a documentary filmmaker can have. There's, the classic director, producer, there's a cinematographer, editor, sound recordist, sound designer, writer, story consultant, field producer, researchers, post-production supervisor, documentary series creator, branded documentary, nonprofit stories, media entrepreneur, independent filmmaker. I feel like I've done all these roles all rolled into one for different projects. I haven't quite done this one, festival distribution careers. And also with an MFA, Master's Fine Art, is a terminal degree. Most universities require a terminal degree in the field to be able to teach, both as an adjunct and full-time positions. But there's some kind of like newer careers to documentary filmmaking. There's this creative producer or creative director for different companies or foundations. I've done some documentary style ads, or this organization, Heavenly Organics, hired me to go to India and make a documentary about their business. So they're a for-profit organization, but they wanted to showcase how they were going about their business. And so it was kind of a nice way to do it. Impact producer, archival producer, video journalist, multimedia reporter, podcast. The podcasts these days are very common, and there's a lot of people that need video podcasters, commercials, docuseries. There's a whole thing with museums and libraries, people that need filmmakers, and particularly documentary filmmakers. Anyway, these are kind of like some of the careers that I could think of for documentary filmmaking. Now, there's two questions that I see in here, in the Q&A box. Can you talk some more about what it means to write a documentary?
Well, okay.
I'm happy to take that on.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Well, writing a documentary is like it's like writing a flying carpet, or like writing a surfboard. Really, it's you have to have an idea for what you want to do. You have to have an angle for where you want to go. You have to have a direction, and you have to have done your research quite well to be able to kind of start with things. And personally, I usually think about, if it's a personal project, I think about writing the interview questions. If it's an interview-based documentary, I think about writing the interview questions first. And then from that, I can see, oh, these are the sections that are evolving out of my film. So this is if it's like an interview-based thing. There's times where I've done just a ton of research, and then you put that research together, and then you find the story. You find who is the person, or what's the situation, where is the story that can carry this message. So this is like if you're starting from the message part. There's also, if I'm working for a nonprofit or like that business, they want to tell the story of this Heavenly Organics, but I need to go and film the people that are collecting the honey, their honey company. So what's the story of the people who are collecting honey, and how did they make it in their life? So you start to think about that journey. So you write it, and then you rewrite it, and you reshape it. So you write it in a way that's open enough to where you can change things, but you also write it in a way that has enough direction so that you're not just floating in space. This is why I say it's like riding a magic carpet or surfing on a surfboard, because you catch the wave and you just go with it, and you allow it to take you to wherever it takes you, and then you ride another wave. But there's gazillion ways to write a documentary, so Stuart might have a different approach to the whole thing.
Well, I think, what, yeah, what I think is crucial is that, before you go into well, you can actually research a documentary in the field. So, if you go and research the story and everything, and then you write the proposal. We certainly go into proposal writing and treatment writing in the MFA, because they are a really important foundation for making all the key decisions that follow from that, in terms of planning the documentary, the shoots, knowing what you're going after, who's going to provide it for you, where they're going to provide it for you, and what the story is that you're going to be telling. So the writing part is really, really important. And of course, you write scripts for the finished documentary as well. It may have voiceover, it might not have voiceover, but it's, you actually write the script, and the real film is a written thing before it's an edited thing. That is that is an essential part of the process, which keeps things like on track for the film that you want to make. So the writing part is very, very important. And so when we do the advanced documentary filmmaking course, for instance, then we start with ideas and we start with writing, because that's where everything needs to become that essential essence of the story that is going to drive everything else. Now, things change, things develop. So the story might evolve, the story might change, things might happen on the ground. That's part of the thrill of the ride of a documentary film. But that initial story outline and having being firm with all that is a very important kind of guiding force through the process of making a documentary. So we do dedicate a fair amount of time to that, as an essential part of the process. Yeah.
Just as we're wrapping up, there's a few more things really quickly that I just wanted to go through, and then again, Stuart and I will stay and answer all the questions that come in for the next few minutes. Our next entry is February 2026. Now, this is important because, as you might have heard, the Grad Plus loans are going to be disappearing, but this February entry, the Grad Plus loans are still available for people, and they mature when you graduate, basically. So if you're eligible for Grad Plus loans, or if you're interested in taking Grad Plus loans, I think this is a good year to apply. We don't encourage you to take loans particularly, but I think, many of us have had to do what we need to do to make to make it, and to get this shift of career going and to start this career as a documentary filmmaker. So our applications are open, and we had an original deadline of December 15th, but we've expanded it with the admissions team to January 11th. But please apply sooner than later if you're planning to apply, because that will give us a time to connect with you, to have one-on-ones. And once you hit apply, there's an application fee of $20, but it's waived for you. So it's kind of like an automatic application. And then you start getting some emails, including some links to talk to us. Our admission counselor, Adrian Crimson, is wonderful, and she's really on the ball with different things. So just wanted to put that out there. Apply today if you're thinking about applying. And then DocuCafe, this is the final one for this fall, but we're going to be launching a new series for DocuCafe. And then webinar replays, this is going to be replayed, and we have a specific page for miu.edu/docu-cafe. This is a QR code for it. And then there's another replay. This is our MFA website, the miu.edu/doc-MFA. So you can check both these things out. Okay, so let's see here. There is a few more questions coming in. One in the Q&A section, and we'll try to do them a little bit quickly. So what if you want to make a film that is in episodes, say 5 one-hour episodes instead of 1 2-hour episodes? Can you submit part of it to a film festival? I would say yes. I would say, send what you have. Sometimes you make a short and you send it to a festival, and you really feel out the response to it. How are festivals responding? How is an audience responding? And then it gives you an idea for where you want to go with the rest of it. Would you say, Stuart?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't think you'd wait on that. As long as you have completion of a first part of it, then yeah, you might pick up interest to support the rest.
Great. Then we have sort of question slash comment here. This talk has been inspiring. Thank you. We're inspired by all of your presence here. It's really great to have so many people here. I have experience writing and directing my own small projects and want more experience in other production roles. My questions are, how can you learn roles such as sound, lighting with no prior experience? What is the best way to connect to other people in films such as mentors and other filmmakers? You know, again, we're promoting our MFA. So when you come as an MFA, we guide you through all these things and we help teach you all these different aspects of the MFA. Even though you're online, you'll be surprised how much you learn. A student was recently saying, she was trying to edit a film and it was very complicated. And then we spent an hour session one-on-one and just had her project open and we just went through all the details and it just made the joy of editing that much faster. And you can watch a ton of YouTube videos, but nothing quite like having a person right there to support you, meeting with you once a week on your terms, on supporting your project. So this is what we have on offer for the MFA. But there's film networks. There's people, like every state will have like a film. In Iowa, we have Produce Iowa, and I know that different states have different film groups. I'm part of like a Facebook group for all the filmmakers in Iowa. I'm connected to some filmmakers in Algeria, where I'm from originally. Um, we have quite a vibrant filmmaking community here in Fairfield. It's a small town, but we have a vibrant filmmaking artist community. So we're constantly helping each other with projects. So if you can plug into something like that wherever you are, that could be quite useful. I think this kind of brings it to an end. Did we miss anything? Oh, there's one question. When do you decide to shift your energy to the next film, or consistently expect impact and nurturing of your films? I have, but like different people work differently. I'm comfortable with the long run. I have films that have been around for 10 years, and in some ways it's like that film needs some of that, needs the ability to capture different moments. I'm making a film about an artist in Algeria, and every time I just film a little more and a little more, and I'm able to capture that evolution over 10 years. But then some projects where you have to kind of like go, all right. So sometimes with clients, with the nonprofits, if I have to travel internationally to work on something, I'll give them a time frame. I'll say I'll come for a month, and during this month, I need to film, shoot, edit, and be done with this film. Like I'm not leaving. I just recently did a project in Thailand, and I told them I have 4 weeks, and I'm gonna film and edit. And here's the plan. And we did a lot of the writing ahead of time and the planning, and then we just in 4 weeks you film and you edit and you're on location, and you try to kind of move it along. Otherwise, you'll never finish. So
Yeah, and it depends on the film, but the thing is that when you're making a documentary and you've been sponsored to make it, you have funds to make it, then that means you're going to be working to budgets. And if you're working to budgets, then you have deadlines. And so it is something that one needs to kind of get hold of, is that completion of projects. You can have longer ones that are being sustained, but then, they're able to do that because they're more personal projects. So, otherwise there'd be a much firmer delivery lines, like it has to be done by a certain time and the budget will run out and all of that. So it depends on the project as regards to that whole thing of when it needs to be complete. But a lot of projects do fall within specific time frames for completion. They can get adjusted because of realities on the ground and so on. But if you want to, in terms of a career producer director, then one of the things that you're tested on and is delivery, is bringing it home and within budget or not much over budget. So that's part of the skill set, actually. Yeah. If you're in a if you for a senior level, it is anyway. Yeah. And producer director is a senior level for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been a real pleasure. It's been a real joy. Thank you all very, very much. And
Yeah. Thanks so much, and really great questions. We've enjoyed it hugely.
yeah, and great
Yeah.
chat going on.
Yeah.
Jose, you're right there. Jose and Munir, you're doing great. And thanks for everybody who's been here with us asking questions. We look forward to talking to you and connect. And
I see that who someone says they're applying. So,
yeah, Jennifer. Okay,
Jennifer.
Jennifer,
Okay,
we look
great.
forward to seeing your application.
Yeah, fantastic.
All right, everybody.
Yeah,
Take good care. We'll
fantastic.
connect
Thank you.
soon.
I hope we have the opportunity to talk more with you through application process and everything. That would be fantastic.
Yes.
But yeah, so great for joining in. Thank you so much for joining us, and yeah, we've really enjoyed it.
All right. Here's our QR code for our website. So adios, everybody.